Well, there we go. Hopefully that should be better. I'm just going to wait a couple of seconds or so just to make sure that the stream's all caught up to where I'm at. The song you're listening to is 46 and 2 by Tool, in case you're interested in looking it up. But there we go. That should be long enough now. So we will get into game number 1. Bam! Look at that. Look at this transition. We're all set to go. So welcome in to CTL week number 4, casted by me. My name is Maristamatic. I'm team captain of Team Composite, so inherently I might be a little bit biased this week. I'm going to try to keep that out of these games, and we're going to try and do this as objectively as possible. But just understand I might get a little bit fired up here as we head into our week 4 game. So spawning up here in the, I guess the right-hand position on, this is the TSL4 version of Metropolis. He's in the red color playing for Team Composite. It is Moron. And spawning across from him in the left-hand position, in the yellow color playing for the team of the Killer Pikachus, it's the Terran player McBainer. This is the bronze level game from week number 4, so don't expect to see the highest level play in this game, but it should be the most entertaining. Now, as Composite Team Captain, I might have a little bit extra insight into these games. I will say this is the one week I haven't actually seen the replays up from, so we're doing a little bit of a cold cast here. So it'll make it a little bit more interesting for me, I guess. Also, spoiler alert, I don't play. I feel like that would be really weird to cast my own game, so I'm just not going to do it. So any Team Composite game that you see on my stream will be without Maristamatic playing in it. Yeah, I think that'll be for the old. Ron gets in with an early scout and he sees everything going on. Most importantly, sees the lack of gas so far for McBainer. Now starting to stock up quite a few minerals of his own. We'll see if he does go for 15 hatchery, if it will be a late pool. This is kind of interesting. So it'll be a 17 pool from Moron, foregoing the early hatchery in favor of just getting out a couple more drones for his spawning pool. And we see the SCV chasing the drone around, leading it on a little bit of a wild chase. A drone does beat an SCV one-on-one because it has its passive health regeneration during the fight. So this will go, yep, 4 hit points in favor of the drone. Very, very standard. Now McBainer has his first SCV out, and we see he's going to go for a more professional-looking build. It is going to be that 1-Rax fast expand that literally everybody and their mother is doing currently. His wall looks a little bit weird here. It looks like the supply depot is just 1 hex back, so there may be a little bit of a gap here. We'll see if that drone, yep. Drone just slides right past the wall in, and he'll get another big scout out in and still see no gas, which is very important. He's even going to steal one, very cheeky from Moron. We do see he's been microing that drone pretty hard. Back at home, he's going double gas. This is really interesting from our Zergy player. And we'll see what kind of strategy he really wants to do here. Anyway, as I was saying, I have some unique insights into this game. I can tell you that this bronze level game was actually the last one played chronologically. And as such, these players' mentalities might be affected a little bit. There was a little bit of pressure on them, and we'll see if that comes into play in this game. McBainer actually with the stop command, or maybe the hold position command on his SCVs there, so not having the best luck early on. Now fixing that, throwing down his second 2 barracks, and double refinery immediately after. We see he's actually doing a very nice job with his macro sonar, not floating any of those extra minerals, whereas Moron having a little bit more difficulty. It looks like he's going to go for a bailing bust of some, actually not. So this is going to be 2-base play. His hatchery we see is actually way behind his opponent's command center. So the command is actually done in morphing it on a little command. Couple of Zerglings going in here. Not controlled, really trying to engage on these marines. It doesn't look like there's going to get any that got a retreat, and they all do fall. So Moron actually quite a bit behind, double expanding actually, and going for the layer. So we see kind of the two opposites of bronze level play. We see somebody who's really trying to hatch out the pro-style opening and everything very, I guess, flowingly, according to perceived meta style. On the other hand, we have Moron, who's just kind of doing what he wants to do. We got a Baneling Nest, we got 2 expansions, we got a lair about 3/4 of the way done at the 6.5 minute mark, and there's the scan, and that's probably actually going to concern McBainer because there's nothing that really makes sense going on. You can see the spawning pool twitching a little bit, indicating that it is making that metabolic boost upgrade, as well as the lair about 3/4 of the way done. This is kind of an interesting scenario now for McBainer to be. We do see he's actually ahead by 12 supply, which is kind of interesting. 8 SCVs ahead as well, and McBainer in a good spot, but Moron should be able to catch up with his 3 hatcheries of production. He's also got 400 or 500 gas nearly banked up, so any tech that he gets on his lair will hit very hard and very suddenly. And there it is, it's going to be the Spire. So Mutalisk's the tech of choice for Moron. And this will be an interesting scenario. As I've said, the macro, not quite there for Moron, and it is McBainer. About 15 supply difference already, and we haven't seen too much action so far. Just a couple of SCVs killed, a couple of Zerglings as well. Factory very, very delayed now for McBainer, finally nearly done, and we'll probably see this like going to be pure bio, at least for the time being for McBainer, which is a very difficult style to play at a lower level. It relies heavily on micro against bases and against inhibitors, and it can be devastated, I would say, by inhibitors and by things, unless you can split, have some way to circumvent your opponent's banelings and infestors. But we'll see what happens. The Spire, just about to finish for Moron, and that'll pop up in just a second. And we see Moron has enough for quite a few mutants. He's actually making a Nidus network as well. And this is going to be Scan McBainer, actually very on top of that, clicking on the Nidus worm. And he hasn't seen the Spire. So we'll probably see him start to move units more toward the back of space just to make sure that there's no spots. Actually, he's not reacting that way at all. Well, he should be moving his units to the corners of his bases just to make sure there's no Nidus worms and make sure he keeps an eye on the mini-map. You can kill Nidus worms with SCVs really, really easily. Nidus worms are actually made of paper, if you didn't know. But this is really interesting for Moron. We see a couple of Mutalisks already out. Looks like 5 in total. Infestation Pit on the way, and just getting all of his tech at once without the drone count. We see 47 SCVs to 26 drones. And this is kind of an interesting spot for Moron, especially since he's probably not aware that he's that far behind in workers. Another mutant on the way, as well as a couple of overlords, because he is supply blocked at 46. And these Mutalisks are going to have to count for quite a bit. We see McBainer playing very safe. He's getting, it's not really a wall in at the front, but a bunch of bunkers at the front do help to protect him against that. Stim Pack is done, but no combat shield, which means that these mutas can do quite a bit of damage against the Marines if they do engage on them. We see McBainer now going for a couple of medevacs. He's going for the engineering bay as well. And this is going to be a very bio-heavy style against McBainer. And like I said earlier, that's going to be very susceptible to banelings, especially if we look at APM 54 to 47. So the APM is just not quite going to be there from our Bronze Terran player. Mutalisk's getting into the natural. That's actually going to force a lift on the command center. That's probably the overreaction of the year from McBainer. He runs all of his SCVs out of there and actually lifts his command center against 5 Mutalisks. Mutas getting in here, they will pick off another SCV or 2. He forces a stim out, losing a couple of the Mutas. The one gets very low, but it will get out of there. So only 4 left alive. Oh, he can't afford to lose too many more, but that's a lot of damage actually done. If we look, not too many workers killed, 12 so far. So he did manage to get a good chunk of the workers down at the natural. But honestly, just a huge overreaction by McBainer. There were only 6 Mutalisks there. If he just A-moved his Marines down into his natural, he would have been very, very safe. But the Mutalisks regathering, gaining a little bit of strength. There's 3 more with them, so we'll be up to a grand total of 7 now, I believe, on the harass. And we do see Moron now using the Infestation Pit, not for Infestors, but is going to go straight up to Hive. And we'll see if that's for Broodlords or Ultralisks. That still remains to be seen. Our Mutaflock trying to fly in. He does see the Vikings as well as the Marines there. It's not too willing to engage on it. But the most important thing these Mutalisks are doing is they've bought more time. They've bought him map control. Even though his macro isn't as good as his opponent's, it's keeping him relatively in the game. He's getting +1 flyer attacks. Now, with Mutalisks, if you get the attacks upgrade, you do tend to be going more for harassment style Mutalisks. If you're going for the defensive Mutalisks, you're going more for attacking. We do see a little bit of a drop going on. Moron actually cleans that up with his drones. We do see that's equalized the workers' killed count, 12 to 11 now. So not the best defense possible there by Moron, but only economic damage done. If we look now, 40 drones to 44 SCVs. Mutas did fly in again, but were taken out pretty heavily by these Marines. And I don't believe they got any more workers now, just whittling down the Marine count of his opponent. We see Moron now with 1,600 minerals in the bank. He's still only operating on 2 gas geysers, and he's not even mining out of them. So Moron having a little bit of difficulty here, and losing maybe a little bit of focus in this game. I think, like I said, this was chronologically the last game played, and that may have had an effect on both players' mentalities. We've seen a couple of little nervous mistakes from both players. McBainer going to go out from a drop, but this might fly directly into the path of these Mutalisks, and that might be 10 supply just gone immediately, and it will be. Assuming these Mutas chase it down, there it goes. So yeah, 10 supply immediately lost there. And as I was saying, back to the point, getting the flyer attacks upgrades tends to indicate that you want to use the Mutalisks more for harassment, rather than as an actual structural part of your army. We see Moron starting to spend his minerals a little bit more, getting out a whole bunch of Zerglings to try and combat this front. We see he's still not mining any gas, actually, which is a little bit worrisome. He needs to make sure to get those drones back in there, and there they go. So we're back to mining gas, everything happy back in the land of Moron. McBainer's throwing down his armory. He's really worried about this Mutalisk count spiraling out of control, I think. So we'll probably see the tech lab come down on the factory as well, and he'll start getting out a handful of Thors. Mutalisks come back in, they will peck away at this 3rd base. He shouldn't be able to actually kill this. We do see the Marines and Marauders now going to stim in, and the Mutas need to get out of there, and they will run very quickly. But McBainer's sitting on this Marine medevac army. He still doesn't have combat shield, but he does have 1-1, and that gives a lot of power to these bio units. Only a handful of medevacs as well, which is a little bit worrying, and we still see all these hurt units back here. But he's really focusing on getting Vikings. Vikings are very good against these Mutalisks, if you can get out enough number to combat them. But we see Moron not too interested in staying in the air, it looks like. He did invest in that upgrade, but instead he's going to go for the Ultralisk Cavern. This is commonly seen as a tech switch rather than as just kind of part of everything going on. Another drop coming down here from McBainer. Was able to get a couple more workers, and he'll actually get everything out of there. So nice response by Moron, able to defend that. And we see he's sticking to these Zerglings. I'd love to see a couple of evolution chambers and get some of these upgrades going for him. But the Ultralisk Cavern is finished up now. And as I was saying, these Vikings just not going to be too useful against the Ultralisks. So if McBainer actually continues to build them, and we do see actually 2 medevacs now, which is a much better decision in my opinion. But if you overcommit to your Viking count, trying to take down Mutas, trying to take down Broodlords, your opponent will just catch you with a bunch of these Ultralisks, and you just start overrunning the front. And Vikings are actually not great on the ground against anything Zerg-related. We do see McBainer going to float over his 3rd base to try and equalize the base count. If we actually look economically, 52 SCVs to 48 drones, which are both very good worker counts for bronze level players, I have to say. But in come the big boys, 3 Ultralisks on the way from Moron, 3 Corruptors as well. So he's going to be going, oh, never mind, no Greater Spire as of yet. I was going to say he was going to be going for an equal mix of Broodlords and Ultralisks, which is kind of the ideal endgame army, but that's not quite the case. Zerglings are swarming in, and they're headed for the third base. There's nothing really here to defend. He doesn't need to take out this planetary before it morphs, as that can cause him a lot of trouble. Take out the SCV, take down the bunker building, now starting to target down the planetary, and that's just going to lift. He'll get a lot of these workers for free, and this is nice damage being done by Moron. You see the supplies have basically equalized, 165 to 138. If you look, that leads to a little bit of a army supply lead for McBainer, but a little bit of a worker supply lead for Moron. So he'll pull back across the map, harvesting on 6 gas geysers now, and starting to get rid of that mineral bank. So the macro catching up for Moron right now from Team Composite. A little bit of a worker transfer going on, and the army going back home to defend. Moron, I think, a little bit wary just because he saw the scan in his natural about McBainer doing a big drop. Those are 2 SCVs. I was pretty sure those were going to be medevacs, judging by where they were. But 2 SCVs kind of out in the middle of nowhere for no particular reason. It looks like he may want to try to expand to that position. We do see the double drop flying directly over the watchtower, which Moron actually controls. And this is actually maybe even going to fly over the army. And these SCVs going to be cleaned up. Another cancel forced on that 4th expansion. And these corruptors even will be able to chase down the medevacs if they really want to. McBainer needs to be careful. I believe they're the same speed, or corruptors might be slightly faster. So we see a little bit of damage being done. He can't chase down those medevacs too far, and Moron will pull back very smartly. But we see McBainer and Moron both getting near max. McBainer's unit composition is going to be Marine Marauder, medevac, along with a handful of Vikings to supplement that. And he's actually going to send this drop back out. Again, Moron has this northern watchtower, so anything flying directly over that path is going to be spotted. And we see this is a little bit better route taken by McBainer. He's headed toward his opponent's eventual 4th base. Moron, meanwhile, checking back to make sure McBainer hasn't taken this 3rd, and really both players kind of feeling a little bit contained. Moron by the drop play of his opponent, and McBainer just by the army that swung in. Moron going to take down these destructible rocks in the back of his base. Zergling's actually really horrible against destructible rocks, especially when they're only 0-1 upgraded. But these medevacs look like they've been spotted as the army trying to pull back. The bunker here doing a little bit of damage to Moron's army as it goes past. But the double drop going to swing in to the natural expansion. We see that the Corruptor's actually there to respond. Really nicely done by Moron. He needs to try and chase these back. The 1 medevac is so low. If that takes just a hit, there's 1 shot actually. And the rest of this is going to get cleaned up, and this is really nicely defended so far by Moron. Both players now nearly maxed out. We still haven't seen much action in this game, and we actually see McBainer throwing down another command center back in his base. So he's going to look to float those command centers around. We see Moron doing a good job. He's got a lot of vision on this map right now. If we actually look, there aren't a whole lot of little hidden areas from him, and that will help him contain his opponent to just 2 or 3 bases, and that's going to make him feel very confident headed in to this later game. So both players finally hitting that max about the 24-minute mark. If we actually look at the APMs of our 2 players, 64 to 58, so very good for bronze level players. A handful of Banelings going to be morphing in, and it looks like he's going to try to bust in the front. 20 Banelings in production, adrenal glands on the way, as well as ground carapace level 2 and centrifugal hooks. And now a handful more Zerglings running in to join the army. So this is going to be maxed out army versus maxed out army. And these army fights are actually going to be bigger and more impressive than you'll see in the higher level games because they have lower worker counts. In comes the engagement. This is not a great spot to engage for the Zerg player. There's not a whole lot of surface area where his Zerglings can do damage, but the Banelings getting in, doing quite a bit of damage to the bio army. And a couple more detonations. We do see the front line kind of falling. Ultralisks are falling very quickly, but doing so much damage in the process. Up to 3 carapace upgrades, and the chitinous plating really showing there. But that trade going much, much better for McBainer, and he'll have a little bit of a counterattack opportunity across the map. These bio units really hurt, and there's only 2 medevacs left to heal them. So a lot of this damage going to remain on these Marines and Marauders. Moron very smartly going to morph some more Banelings back home. The Baneling roll upgrade has finished. Adrenal Glands about to finish as well, and that was kind of an anti-timing for him. Had he waited for a couple of these upgrades to finish, he'd be in a much better spot than he is. But we see this is going to be pure Ling Baneling versus Marine Marauder Medevac, and in comes the engagement. The Zerglings trying to surround this Bio Army. Nice running away, I suppose, by McBainer. Another stim up, and these Medevacs not able to heal fast enough, and you can see how little damage it actually takes to kill this army now. A couple of stray reinforcements headed across the map. McBainer still doesn't have combat shield, and that's really costing him. These Baneling hits just taking chunks out of his army, and the ground army now gone. Vikings still left in the air for McBainer, but that doesn't matter too much. Moron able to clean that up, and we even see one Corruptor trying to fly in. The Vikings will be able to dispose of that fairly quickly. And now a little bit of a standoff between the Vikings and this handful of Zerglings. More and more Corruptors and Zerglings in production from Moron. McBainer, meanwhile, staying on his side, making 8 rings and a Marauder at a time, which, again, the lack of siege tanks really costing McBainer, as without the ability to spread his units against these Banelings or to in any way negate that splash damage, he's just having so much difficulty not taking humongous damage from that AoE. Transfer of FCVs, not looking too happy there, as it was spotted by a handful of Zerglings, but it does look like McBainer going to be able to take his third base after all and kind of secure that. A couple more workers come down, so we're up to 32 to 13 now, kid. After that little Zergling counterattack. Now Broodlords, 2 of them. There's 3 here, along with a handful of Corruptors. 4 Moron headed across the map. McBainer having a lot of difficulty because he's actually out of minerals. If we look, he's basically mined out in his natural. He could still harvest from there, of course. Basically mined out in his main. So all of his mining now going on at this third base. And the starve out strategy from Moron starting to take a heavy toll. The air army is coming in now for McBainer, and these Vikings really have control of the sky. I'm not sure this handful of Corruptors, without the corruption ability, will be able to handle it. But he's going to lose a couple of these Overlords, and this Viking fleet actually probably going to pay for itself before long, as he takes out another Overlord. The problem is he has no answer to the ground army right now of Moron. A whole ton of Zerglings with 42 more on the way, plus 1 melee attacks on the way as well, so they'll be 1-2 upgraded before long. The bio on 2-1, so those upgrades fairly equivalent. But now the sort of mining we see he's actually taking care of the neutral creep tumor on this base. Moron now going for an attack into the 4th base. It looks like he'll be able to force the lift on this command center again. Unfortunately, right before it gets burning, so that's not going to be quite as much damage as he hoped. Now the Zerglings coming in. Concussive Shell actually doing a lot to slow them up. Nice stutter step, I have to say, from McBainer, but eventually the bio units get surrounded and killed, and the Zerglings going to get into the natural and start taking out more and more SCVs. And again, this was the only mineral mining currently from McBainer, so he's down to 26 minerals. And we see all of the SCVs now down, 57 workers killed now by Moron, taking care of this third base as well. That's going to burn down a couple of these barracks as well, unless they do get lifted by McBainer. And this is a really difficult situation. We see the Vikings have come in, the rest of the Corruptors are finally here to engage, and it looks like the Corruptors will finally be able to clean up this Viking hit squad that's been roaming around the map. 164 supply now to 49. Moron in a really nice position. We see command centers just kind of floating around the map. This one finally going to land up on the island, and he's going to need a lot more than just that island expansion to keep himself in the game. Corruptors have finally found the Vikings again in the middle of the map. Those will all go down, and now Moron just kind of needs to move in for the kill. And we see exactly that. In come the Zerglings of Moron at the front. And there they go. Nice surround on the Marines and Marauders. Bunker will fall as well. And this looks to be the end of the game. 154 supply to 24. McBainer with the GG. And game number 1 going to go to Team Composites Moron. We're just kind of waiting for McBainer to leave the game. And there we go. congratulations to Moron and Team Composite as they go up 1-0 early on in this CTL match. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with the Silver League match between Team Composite and the Killer Pikachus. You're watching Chobo Team League casted by Meristematic.